G'day, my name's Stephen Avalia. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Moorabool Shire, and I'm here to present you with a brief overview of the draft budget for 2023-2024. Plan on going through a couple of things today, giving people an indication as to how they can get involved in the budget process, a little bit of an overview of the budget process and timetable, some of the key challenges and financial pressures that the council has been facing, and a bit of an overview of the operating and the capital improvement program. So firstly, and probably most importantly, if anyone feels strongly about a particular topic or a project, then this is the time to do it. The draft 23-24 budget is currently out for consultation and will be open for consultation until the 10th of May 2023. Very importantly, if anyone wishes to make a submission in relation to the budget, it needs to be done in writing. Alternatively, residents can submit their feedback through Council's Have Your Say website. Just very briefly touching upon some of the key timetables to the 23-24 budget. As I'd indicated, the budget is currently out for consultation and will be until Thursday, the 4th of May. On the 10th of May, we're planning to have a special meeting of council to hear and consider any submissions from members of the public. It'll also be an opportunity for any members of the public who want to be heard by council in support of their submission. They'll also have that opportunity on the 10th of May if they so desire. And on the 17th of May, we have a special meeting of council convened to adopt the 2023-24 budget. It's fair to say before I start talking about the budget, probably need to mention the council plan. So the council plan is one of the key documents that guides the annual budget process. It's a 4-year document and it's developed in the first year of every council term. We're currently will be going into the 4th year of our current council plan that was developed in 2020 on the back of a deliberative engagement process which included surveys and a community panel. The council plan is really important because it really sets the strategic scene for many of the important initiatives and projects that cascade into successive budgets. Moving on from the council plan, on an annual basis, council officers prepare budgets on a business as usual basis, with adjustments generally made to reflect various changes. For example, cost pressures, weather events, growth, etc., etc. It's not a given that budgets are prepared and just rolled over on an annual basis. We do actually have an active process of service reviews which help to ensure that our services are aligned to community expectations and cost effective. And we've got a number of examples of service reviews in the last couple of years that we've done and we continue to do that will have an impact on future years' budgets. And also probably important to underline that we've got a 10-year financial plan, which is all about ensuring that we can deliver sustainable services into the future and we can also remain financially viable. Council is currently in a period of heavy investment in community infrastructure and major developments. And you can see by the graph, the blue bars represent the growth in our annual capital works programs for each year since the 2018-19 year. You can see a steady increase, which reflects a real focus on delivering on a number of major strategic projects, a number of which are highlighted on the list, but are not an exhaustive list. It's also important to note that as the capital works program has grown, so too has council's ability to effectively leverage external grants and contributions. So council has been very successful in the last couple of years, has spent a lot of time and effort on advocacy to different tiers of government, and we can actually see significant contribution from state and federal governments into our last couple of years capital works programs, and on the back of the advocacy work that is happening and has been actively happening, we should see that continue to grow over the next few years, which will ultimately mean that the community will reap the benefits. Rates for next year are at this stage recommended to increase by 3.5% for the 23-24 year. It's important to note that though the rate of inflation is increasing at a much quicker rate than what average rates are increasing by. And this table shows that for the last 3 financial years, the rate of inflation has been exceeding rate increases by a factor of 3. So rates have been increasing at approximately 1/3 of the rate of inflation. So it actually makes it quite difficult to manage a budget when your expenses are increasing at a much quicker rate than your revenues. The council has also been impacted by the flow-on impacts of the pandemic, as have many councils across Victoria and indeed Australia. But you can actually see for the 21-22 year at the height or the depth of the pandemic, we actually experienced a pretty significant slowdown, and the number that's being measured there is the growth in rateable assessments. Now, the growth in rateable assessments is important because it's a key driver of our operating budget and determines how rapidly we can meet our community service obligations and invest in maintenance and infrastructure. And you can see in 21-22, growth almost came to a screeching halt as a result, as did most of Victoria at that time. So it has a flow-on impact on, it'll have a flow-on impact on our finances for the next couple of years. But just to highlight that the pandemic has actually had an impact on previous and also future budgets. Weather events have also been a big factor that have impacted Moorabool over the last couple of years. Australia is currently experiencing its 3rd consecutive La Nina weather phenomenon. And in October 22, we had another severe weather event that impacted significant parts of our shire. In the current financial year, the council made a commitment to inject an additional $1 million into road maintenance to help reinstate many of the assets that were impacted by those flood events. And council is actively working with other levels of government to ensure that we can attract funding to assist with the repair efforts to ensure that there's a minimal impact on the resident, on the ratepayer. But in the current year, we've been successful in receiving well over $1 million in external grants from the state government to assist in defraying some of the expenses as a result of those weather events. But it has had a significant impact both financially and also operationally because it has stretched our staffing resources to be able to cope with those events. And council is also very mindful of the need to ensure that we put sufficient dollars into maintenance and renewal of our roads into next year's budget and also into later year forecasts. It's at the forefront of our minds. For 23-24, we'll see almost close to a $4.5 million increase in our operating budget. So operating budget expenses are predicted to increase by just under $4.5 million. Now, the challenge of that, again, as I noted, currently inflation is very high and probably will continue to be high in Australia for the next 12 to 18 months. And that's been a real important driver in that cost base increasing. Also, the significant level of investment in infrastructure is going to mean in future years and next year, our depreciation is also going to be increasing at a rapid rate. In addition to the impact of growth, because the council is experiencing quite a rapid expansion in growth and new people coming into the Shire is having an impact on our operating budget for next financial year. Luckily, we've been able to find most of those expenses, so you can actually see the blue line in our revenue. We're delivering a close to balanced budget next financial year, notwithstanding some of those significant cost challenges that we're facing. And our future 10-year financial outlook is quite positive, notwithstanding we're going to have some lean years over the next couple of years. This graph actually shows that over the next 2 or 3 years, our costs will actually be increasing at a greater rate than our expenses. So we can see we're looking at probably generating some small operating budget deficits over the next couple of years. But we're expecting, as the significant growth trajectory in that shire starts pointing upwards in the next few years, we think that the future financial outlook for our operating budget is actually going to be quite positive. Notwithstanding, we have had some short-term challenges. So the key message here is that in spite of some really big challenges happening across the council, the municipality, and also the broader economy, our medium to long-term outlook is good, even though we're going to have some challenges in the next couple of years that are flowing from, post-pandemic issues and also resulting from higher asset growth. So the operating budget will be tight for a couple of years, but to offset that, the capital works, the capital improvement program is large and really underpinned by significant levels of government grants, which is a really positive outcome for the community. Waste service charges next year will be increasing. Waste service charge for service properties will be increasing by about just a touch over 11%. For non-service properties, a touch over 6%. Again, most of the costs for our waste service charges are underpinned by the rate of inflation and also the cost of fuel. So those are both increasing at quite a rapid rate. So the impact there is that those waste service charges will be increasing next year. From a really positive perspective, though, we've got close to $42 million in new works planned for next financial year, just shy of $42 million. The really positive thing here is that almost 50% of that, and actually by the time the budget is adopted, it'll probably be in excess of 50% of next year's planned capital works is actually going to be funded by external grants and contributions. Again, which is a really fantastic reflection of the work that the council and the community have done to advocate to other tiers of government for the need to invest in Moorabool Shire. And of that $42 million, a much smaller percentage is actually being funded by the ratepayer. So it's a really fantastic news story there. And it actually means that if you look at the size of our capital works program to the size of our rate base, that for every $1 in rates that we're actually levying, we're actually we're as an organisation delivering back to the community $1.10 in capital works. So I think it's a really positive. I think it's a really positive thing for the community that we'll see such a heavy investment in our infrastructure program next financial year and in the next few years beyond that. Just to put in perspective the investment in capital works for next year, it's important to understand that this shire, in addition to covering a very, very large geographical area, also has a significant asset base. So we've got an asset base that's nearing $700 million. And in the next 5 years, that asset base will actually be getting closer to $1 billion. So when you're looking at that overall metric, it really is a significant challenge that this council has to ensure that we can invest adequate amounts into our current and future works programs to ensure we can keep up to date with our asset maintenance and renewal, but also meet communities' expectations around the investment in new assets. And there are a number of challenges and guiding influences when we put that capital works program together. And as I mentioned, there's obviously the growth that's happening over the next 10 to 15 years, which is expected to effectively double the size of our population over the next 10 to 15 years. So we need to get the balance right between investing in renewal and also providing new assets for current and future communities. There's also financial costs and constraints. I noted that the rate of inflation has been going at significant rates. And in addition to that, the cost of materials used for infrastructure has been going in some parts at even higher rates. So there's been some real challenges in the cost of materials, but also resourcing and availability. And then on top of that, you layer weather events such as storm, floods, and La Nina. So it is actually quite a big challenge to manage the delivery of the capital works program and the planning for the capital works program. This just highlights that the capital works program, it doesn't happen in isolation. I spoke about the council plan as being a really critical and important element which drives a lot of the major initiatives that drop into our capital works program, but there is a number of avenues where we get advice that informs how we put together the capital works program. So you can see from there we've got asset management strategies and plans. We take asset condition data and maintenance data from our corporate systems. We get feedback from the community and customer requests, and we have adopted strategies and plans and adopted master plans. We've got developer contribution agreements and Section 173 agreements, which inform future program development as well. So it really has got there's a massive amount of work that goes into collating and scoring and developing a draft capital works program to bring to the council and the community for consideration. If we look at the overall 23-24 capital works program at a more granular level, we can see that in total next year's capital works program is 56.5 million. I alluded to the fact that new works is just shy of 42 million, but we'll have about $15 million worth of projects that won't be completed this financial year. So in total, we're anticipating to deliver in a roundabout terms about $56.5 million in capital works next year, again, which is a really significant achievement when you compare it to the size and scale of our organisation. And you can see there's some significant investment in major projects and new facilities. We've got $6 million contribution towards Bacchus Marsh Racecourse Reserve Pavilion, the Balan Library and Community Hub, and the Town Centre Plaza that will sit with that project. We've got the West Manningley Early Years facility currently under construction, and there's another large allocation in next year's budget for the continuation of that project, in addition to a number of other projects such as the Bowls Club Pavilion and Bowling Green, Bald Hill redevelopment, and the Dunstown Reserve upgrade. In addition to that, there's a significant investment in asset renewal, all in all about $14.5 million in new money for asset renewal, which will see approximately 7% of our sealed road network resurfaced next year and approximately 3% of unsealed roads and shoulders resheeted next year. But I would encourage those who are interested in looking at the planned works program in more detail to download a copy of the budget from Council's website, and you'll be able to get a full indication of all of the individual projects that are intended to be drafted as part of next year, as part of the draft capital works program next year. So I just wanted to again thank everyone for their time, and really just to reiterate that if you do feel strongly about a particular project or a particular issue, this is your opportunity now as part of the consultation process to put something in, put a budget submission in writing, or alternatively, you can do so via Council's Have Your Say website. Thank you so much.